Well, greetings. Welcome to our CityRise podcast. Thank you for joining us. We have Angelina today with NAMI, a new organization for me to meet and ministry. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what the Lord's doing. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us maybe about your background and then a little bit about your organization.
Sure. My name is Angelina Hudson. I'm the director now of NAMI Greater Houston. I've been with NAMI a total of 25 years.
Wow.
I did not start off as a director. We've only had staff maybe 14 years. I started off as a parent.
Okay.
And my husband and I had a son while I was getting my master's degree, and he was not developing the way other children develop. And so I decided, okay, let me step back. I was planning to go to law school, but we decided, maybe we need to watch him and make sure he gets off on the right foot.
Sure.
Well, we didn't find that foot for another 7 years.
Wow.
And that was when he first spoke his first word. And we moved back to Houston. At that time, we lived in McAllen, Texas.
Yeah.
My husband and I are both from Houston.
Okay.
I graduated from law enforcement. He graduated from health professions. And we never met. We were so close in proximity in terms of where we grew up. We both went to River Oaks Elementary. We never met.
Wow.
It's a true Harry met Sally kind of story. But we were introduced by my sister, and we've been married 31 years. And let me see, maybe 4 years into it, we had this little boy, and he just did not develop. With my daughter, I could play peekaboo, and she would play back with me.
Sure.
She would mimic my smile, that
Right.
kind of thing, blink when I blink. He did none of those things.
Yeah.
And so that was my first notion we might have a problem. But the doctors did a very good job of soothing my worry and
Right.
putting my unease to the side. But after he turned 3, he was still not saying mama or daddy. But he's 29 now. If a child presented today at any primary care physician, immediately they would get a referral.
Yeah.
So things are different now, and
Sure.
I'm thankful for that.
Sure.
But at the time, I really, I'm a woman of faith. My husband and I are both saved by God, and Jesus has been a big part of what's
Amen.
kept us together
Sure.
all of this time. Even when it looked at its darkest, we really, I never shall forget my, when I thought I was just totally set apart and cast aside from all the other mothers at our church. I didn't have a story like them. And I just felt like God was, I don't know, because in your despair, you can think you're being punished or,
Sure.
you're just not worthy. And so I wrote this long letter to my pastor. And I said, I can't do it anymore. I mean, I don't remember what I said. And I walked into church. This was a communion Sunday. And I walked into church and I said, read this after church. Well, he read it immediately, right? And so the next thing I know, his wife and they both had me in the back. And I began to just really share how I just really thought maybe I don't have enough faith or any of those things. And then I just learned through my journey that it's really God's love that refines us and gives us purpose through anything that we're going through. So he certainly have taken me and my husband and made our what we thought was the worst thing in the world has really been the best thing in the world.
He redeems
and and he's made up the time. My son, who did not call me mama, I would pray every day, Lord, just let him call me mama. Now he calls me every single day, demanding what he wants for dinner at 6:30. He called me this morning and told me what he wants. So it's just been a wonderful journey of time after time. David said it best, if he took care of the bear and he took care of the lion, surely he'll take care. And that's what it's been. He took care of the diagnosis of autism. He took care. I have another child who had ADHD. He took care of that, and all the other things that a family can go through. He's covered it all. And that's really why I'm still with NAMI.
Okay.
I've not ever left NAMI. I volunteered for 10 years and just made it my my work.
Yeah.
Everyone at NAMI is a volunteer. There's only about 5 staff members. Okay. It's about 200 volunteers. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we get certified nationally through evidence-based programs on mental health and how to learn the best practices on how to survive it with dignity and respect. Yeah. You get the language of NAMI, which is aspirational. Yeah. So it's not founded in scripture, but then again, I'm of the belief that when it's good, it's God anyway. Yeah. You know, it may not have, John 3 and, but
all truth is God's truth.
But all truth is God's truth. Yeah. And so I've met wonderful people in this journey. My first class, I sat with 20 other moms and dads, and the teachers at the front of the table, they found me in a puddle. I was at a school crying. And the chair of the department was a NAMI teacher, a volunteer. Okay. Yeah. And he said, "Miss Hudson, what are you doing?" And I felt so exposed. I thought, oh my goodness, he sees me, right? And he did. And he said, "You need NAMI." And I said, "What's a NAMI?" And he said, "It's a group of families that help other families walk this journey." Yeah. And it's absolutely free. Yeah. And it's still free today. Okay. So these classes, they used to take 12 weeks. We meet once a week for 12 weeks. We've whittled it down to 8 weeks because it's so hard for people who work every day to make it. Yeah. But there's nothing like it. It's a room of people who are pretty terrified about what they don't understand. Right. And they sit with this curriculum and 2 teachers. Many of us are husband and wife or 2 moms who have been in this journey. And we share this evidence-based curriculum peppered with our own personal experiences. And the people in the room usually have either no diagnosis yet or some various mood disorder diagnosis or psychosis diagnosis or a combination. Yeah. But one thing is always constant, and it resonates in every class. We don't diagnose and we don't recommend any particular treatment path or any particular physician. But what we address are the stumbling blocks, the valleys, the lows, the issues that come up for everyone who's dealing with a disabling and chronic disease. Yeah. What makes brain disorder different, I believe, than any other disabilitating disorder is that there's so much stigma around it. Right. Yeah. People believe, I came across this even in my journey. People believe it's more spiritual. Well, everything's spiritual. Sure.
Right. But some things are chemical.
Yeah. But this has also a medical underlying predisposition. Sure. And there's treatment. And for things that are there's no cure, like there's not a cure for autism. Right. But there's certainly a lot of interventions and clinical supports and non-clinical supports. Yeah. And my son, the one who's diagnosed with autism, has just fallen in love with church and the good people of Christ, and he likes going to camp. Yeah. He goes to a camp called Camp Blessing, and it's just been phenomenal. And then the other 2 children who've watched God's love envelope their brother. Yeah. That is really the testimony for them, right? Yeah. When my son would volunteer at this camp, he would come home. For 3 months, he didn't speak the same. Yeah. I said, whoa, and so it's just been very important in my family, in my experience, to knit both our belief and our values along in our faith, along with the supports through NAMI and any other clinical supports that we've received. Yeah. But to be quite honest with you, there's no medication that really. My son, the one diagnosed with autism, he is a very self-disciplined young man, and so he's really not taking any medication. Yeah. And then the youngest one, who might benefit, right? We call him the Yahoo. He might benefit. He won't. He believes in holistic approaches. And he does now have an adult diagnosis of bipolar disorder. But you know what he says? God doesn't make any junk. Right. He feels that he was created the way he was meant to be. So every aspect of his being, brilliant, but he learns independently. So he
Mhm.
takes independent courses. He won't
Okay.
sit in a classroom.
Yeah.
He's an inspector.
Okay.
So he does a lot of solo work.
Sure.
Now he's working with the county, but it's still very solo.
Right.
So he's just found a way to navigate his life
Sure.
in a way that he can still participate
Yeah.
and not require medication. I mean, that's just
Sure.
that's his stick. But
Our background, we grew up in Houston. I
Mhm.
did. My wife moved here in high school, and we were missionaries for almost 30 years in Europe.
Oh,
We took
wow.
3 preschool kids. We adopted 2 Polish kids, and one of them is special needs.
Oh,
And
then
so
you
we
understand.
took home 2 8-year-olds or twins,
Uh-huh.
and our daughter, the girl of the twins, is now she works at Chick-fil-A in the cleaning area and has purpose in life. And she helps with our children on Sundays at the church and functions very well. And so I
Purpose.
say that because a lot of people, unless you've experienced that, it's not the same as watching a movie.
No,
It is
it's every day.
24/7.
Right. Right. It's every day. There's no holidays.
Yeah.
Even the brief time that he does spend away from me,
Mhm.
I'm just waiting for the phone to ring. And it's, but I don't know. At one point, I wanted this to go away.
Mhm.
So if there's a parent listening that is saying, God, please deliver us from this,
Right.
the way God delivers is so unique for
Right.
every individual.
Sure.
I thought, you hear the stories of people growing back limbs in the Bible. You hear,
Right.
I just wanted a complete and total,
Sure.
just get rid of it all.
Right.
But what I found is that we're better people. We're a tighter family.
Sure.
We have purpose in supporting other families. And so that's the work of NAMI. So NAMI as a ministry.
Mhm.
So I don't know if everybody calls it a ministry, but I certainly see it all the
Right.
time. The families who have been helped, they then turn around and say, I want to teach.
Yeah.
And so our teachers have been with us 15, 20, 25 years. NAMI started in 1988.
Okay.
I didn't come on the scene until 2001
Okay.
when my son was 4. And so I started like volunteering. And so that's how most families come to us. If they're just an advocate and they're not walking the journey, they'll say, I just want to, do something to help these,
Sure.
the cause or whatever. And so we have room for that type of volunteer. But most of our teachers of the research-based curriculum, they have lived experience.
Yeah.
And so they've taken the class. But if you haven't taken the class and you want to volunteer and you're eligible, meaning you're either a person in recovery yourself or you've been a family member, caregiver of someone who was diagnosed. My daughter who said, I remember when she was 19, she said, oh, I just can't wait to get away. I'm going to do something totally different. I'm not going to have anything to do with special needs. Well, guess where she's at the Dunn Center for Behavioral Sciences.
Right.
And she's working there as a peer navigator and a peer support specialist.
Yeah.
And so it's become her mission.
Sure.
The Yahoo that I had referred to, he's always finding someone and pulling them back in. He'll find the loner or the one who's disenfranchised, probably the way he feels.
Sure.
And he's always pulling them back in. And so it's just become our whole family's purpose. So if there's, I think our message is twofold. On one side, if you're a person who knows someone who's really struggling quietly, I would always say it's the person who has quiet desperation.
Sure.
They don't really share openly because of shame, blame, and guilt, then that person would truly benefit from.
How do people find you? What's the best connection point?
The best thing to do is to email us. Okay. Like I said, we have 5 people in the office. If anyone's out of the office, like this morning, there was Kern, our resource manager, is so we have a warm line and resource center operated by Kern Vanderberg, and his number is 713-970-4483. And he is a wonderful character. He's been with us for about 10 years.
All right.
We were fortunate to get him during COVID and full time. But before that, he was still with us. But we got him full time during COVID from the Council on Recovery.
Okay.
So what we know is that 40% of the adults who may not have, in my case, my children were young, but when the onset is later in life, there's a 40% chance that they'll have dual diagnosis.
Okay.
They'll have issues with the mental health problem and substance use disorder.
Right.
And that's because maybe they were self-medicating before they realized, you know. And so in that case, both issues have to be addressed. And that's Kern's forte.
Okay.
But that 4483-713-970, 4483, that's Kern. But if you want to take a class, I mean, you can call the same number. That's our warm line.
Right.
And so we use volunteers who are trained and certified, but they are volunteer peer specialists who answer that line.
Right.
And we also have class teachers who teach the class who also answer that line.
Right.
And they register. They register people who might be interested in the class.
You've got a website people can get more information?
Our website is NAMI, N-A-M-I, GreaterHouston.org.
Okay.
NAMIGreaterHouston.org. And our email is NAMIGH@NAMIGreaterHouston.org. Okay. And I answer that email. Okay. So I'm big on email. But I can tell you that most families that call, they really don't know what to ask us.
Sure.
And we end up asking them, just tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
But the three things I think that we provide that is most needed by families, support groups, they're free. They're both in person and online.
Right.
And then we have classes that are free, and they're also in person and online. We serve 3 counties, Fort Bend, Montgomery County, and Harris County. The truth is, though, because of the online aspect, people join our classes from all over the country. Yeah. And then awareness. So we can come out to any church or school and do a presentation that is specific to that population, if it's parents of small children or parents of adult children, because the pathways are different. You know, a majority of diagnoses seem to bubble up somewhere between 16 and 24 years old. So it's usually right when they're going to college and you think you're done. You know, I was a rare bird because I was so young with my children. Matter of fact, most people in NAMI, they're not diagnosed because at one time they didn't diagnose that young. Yeah. But they're doing a better job now of kind of pinpointing what it is. Sure. But I will say love is the number one intervention that supports the family and the child or the adult who, you know, yes, you may want to get a diagnosis. Yes, you may find some cocktail of medication that just works for you. But if you did all of that and no love and no support and no network, you're still not going to fare as well. Sure. So I think, and the other thing that families usually tell us when they take our class, they're so despondent. They say, I wish I had known 4 years ago. I wish I had known 10 years ago. Well, here's the truth. You don't know what no one's ever told you. Right. And there's a period of time where you can only accept so much information. Yeah. So, you know, I always encourage families, whenever your revelation occurs, then from that point you move forward, right? And God will make up the difference. He's a redeemer of the time. Right. So I don't worry about time. And I tell people that when it comes to research doesn't matter when it's you. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's 6 out of 10. If it's 6 out of 10, exactly, and you're in the 6, right? You know. So that's when faith comes in, and it carries you the rest of the way. Sure. So it's been a wonderful journey. I wouldn't change it. It's been married for 31 years. It has been one big science experiment. Right. We've done things with food and location of where we live, and we've done all these things, but really the number one intervention that has saved us all is love. Yeah. And God's love, you know, that agape love that really just covers a multitude of sins. So I didn't know I was going to say that in interviewing with you today. You would think if you came to a NAMI class or a support group, there would be a lot of, talking about the Bible or religion. There really isn't. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a very timed presentation, both in the support group and in the. But can I tell you what happens after the group? The families meet in the parking lot, or they meet down the street at the Denny's, or they meet in the lobby. So the class and the group is one part. Yeah. But it's the relationships. I've made life friends through NAMI. And I think, again, that's an extension of that love. Yeah. Someone who sees you, who hears you, they see past the facade, because everybody says, oh, I'm fine. You're not fine, you know? Yeah. And so I think that's the way to overcome this. Find your people. It's the biopsychosocial approach. Bio is get a diagnosis, know what you're dealing with. Yeah. Psycho is understand the disorder or the diagnosis, but also understand how it affects or impacts you. Because if you meet two people with bipolar disorder, they're not the same. Right? Or two people who had any incident, they're not the same. So psycho education is about learning how the illness really impacts you and your family and what you're going to do about it. And then social, find your people. Find your people. Yeah. And we've been able to find our people in so many areas in so many ways. NAMI has been a wonderful vehicle. What I love the most, especially when I was volunteering with NAMI, is you can take these pearls of wisdom and go into any setting. You know, they're and that's what we prefer. Yeah. We prefer people to share the knowledge and the wisdom from heart to heart. Right. Yeah. It's we don't have billboards. Yeah. We don't have mass mail outs. Yeah. It's really families telling other families. And autism was not a big diagnosis initially. It started with schizophrenia. Right. And then it went on into the mood disorders and the anxiety disorders. Yeah. But I was one of the earliest families that said, nope, you're not getting rid of me. I'm staying right here. My son has autism and we're going to stay right here. And so now autism is a big part of, I don't completely have the answer as to why families who are dealing with pervasive development disorder, which has a broader range than just autism, it's autism spectrum disorders. Yeah. Those families, including myself, are very eager to find out, what are we going to do? Right. But when families are dealing with bipolar disorder or schizoaffective disorder, they're like, okay, let's just stay home. You know, they're not so ready to figure out what to do. There seems to be you blame the person for their issues, and you blame them. And I can't quite explain the big divide. Yeah. Because the issues you deal with, the moodiness, the anxiety, the structure that's needed, the attention to detail, all of that is the same. I've been able to watch it all now in slow motion. Yeah. So I know now that the issues in life that you have with one are similar to the issues in life you have with the other. Yeah. So why is this big? You know, and one with autism, people say, oh, yeah. And with bipolar, people say, oh, lock him up. You know, you know, and it's this big disconnect between the two. And so I think maybe that's our work now, just to make sure that, like my youngest son, if we see someone isolating, straying off by themselves, you know, extend a hand and bring that. I read a book written by Temple Grandin. It's called Thinking in Pictures. And after the book ends, there's this one paragraph that she added after the book ended. And it says, if you really want to help, I'm paraphrasing. If you really want to help someone who is cut off from the world and they're in their own space, the best thing you can do for them is to walk in their world, grab them by the hand, and walk them back out. Yeah. And that's what we've That's what we've been trying to do, one at a time. All right. I'm going to draw us to a close. That was amazing. And I'm sure there's so much else to share. Partners, you've heard how to connect with NAMI and maybe to refer someone, maybe to look further yourself, maybe to join as a supporter. And I would encourage you to meet Angelina and to hear more. But thank you for joining us on our CityRise podcast, and God bless.